In the spring of 1945, the United States government placed a quiet order with a manufacturing facility in Philadelphia. The order was for medals, specifically for Purple Hearts, the decoration given to American soldiers wounded or killed in combat. The order was for 500,000 of them, not 5,000, not 50,000, 500,000 Purple Hearts, manufactured and warehoused, waiting. The people who placed that order knew exactly what they were ordering them for. They were ordering them for the men who were going to die on the beaches of Japan. That number tells you everything you need to know about what the United States government believed was coming. And it tells you why, on the afternoon of June 18, 1945, 7 men sat in a room in the White House and no one wanted to say a single word. Henry Stimson is 77 years old. He has served 5 American presidents. He has outlasted wars, depressions, and political catastrophes that would have destroyed lesser men. His hands do not shake. His voice does not waver. He has spent his entire adult life in rooms exactly like this one, listening to men describe things that cannot be fixed. But today is different. Today, Stimson already knows what the numbers say, because he read them alone in his office the night before. He read them and then he sat very still for a long time, the way a man sits when something finally, irrevocably, becomes real. The meeting starts at 3:30 in the afternoon. Present, Admiral Leahy, General Marshall, Secretary of the Navy Forrestal, General King, General Ira Eaker, President Truman, who has been in this job for less than 2 months, who inherited this war the way a man inherits a house that is already on fire. Truman opens the meeting with one question: how many Americans are going to die? General George Marshall speaks first. He is precise, measured, and completely without sentiment, which is exactly what the moment requires. He explains the plan. Operation Olympic, November 1st, 1945. American forces landing on the island of Kyushu, the southernmost tip of Japan. 14 divisions, 766,700 men in the assault force alone. The largest amphibious operation ever attempted in the history of warfare. Bigger than Normandy by a factor of 3. And then Operation Coronet, March 1946. The landing on Honshu, the main island. The drive toward Tokyo itself. Together, these 2 operations have a name: Operation Downfall. Marshall gives the first casualty estimate. Based on projections from the Joint War Plans Committee, American casualties for the first phase alone, just Kyushu, would reach roughly 31,000 in the first 30 days. For the full campaign to defeat Japan on its own soil, the total is estimated somewhere between 250,000 and 1 million American dead. The room is quiet for a moment after he says this. Admiral Leahy speaks next. He is 70 years old, the oldest man in the room, the one who has seen the most. He does not soften what he is about to say. He points out that on Okinawa, which ended 11 days ago, American forces suffered casualties at a rate of 35% of the assault force. 35 out of every 100 men who landed were killed or wounded. 82 days of fighting, cave by cave, tunnel by tunnel, against Japanese defenders who did not retreat and did not surrender, and did not stop until they were physically destroyed. Leahy applies that percentage to 766,700 men. The answer is 268,450 American casualties, just for Kyushu, before a single soldier sets foot on the main island. No one in the room argues with him, because this is not speculation. This is Okinawa, scaled up. Here is what you need to understand about Okinawa, because the men in this room cannot stop thinking about it. Okinawa is a small island, roughly 60 miles long. The Americans had overwhelming air power, overwhelming naval power, and complete control of the sea around it. They outnumbered the Japanese defenders by more than 2 to 1. They had tanks, artillery, and an unbroken supply chain, every advantage that modern warfare can offer. It still took 82 days. It still cost 12,000 American dead and 36,000 wounded. And toward the end, Japanese commanders ordered the civilian population of the island to fight. Ordinary people, women and children, were handed weapons or told to charge American positions with sharpened bamboo. Thousands of them died. Some jumped from cliffs rather than surrender. That was one small island. Kyushu has a coastline of over 1,000 miles, a population of 13 million, and the Japanese military has had months to prepare for exactly the invasion that is now being planned in this room. General MacArthur's own staff, the headquarters of the man who will command the invasion, estimates 105,000 American casualties for Kyushu. That is MacArthur's number, the optimistic one, from the man whose career depends on the operation succeeding. His own people are telling him that 100,000 Americans will be killed or wounded just to secure a foothold. The Medical Corps has produced its own estimate, separate from MacArthur, separate from the Joint War Plans Committee. Just the doctors, working from Okinawa data, calculating how much blood plasma to order, how many surgical teams to deploy, how many hospital ships to position offshore. Their number is 300 to 94,859 casualties in the first 90 days. This is the number that made Stimson sit still in his office the night before. Truman listens to all of it. He is a man from Missouri, the son of a farmer, who 6 weeks ago was vice president and is now responsible for ending a war that has killed 400,000 Americans. He has no military background. He had no idea until 3 weeks after taking office that the Manhattan Project even existed. He asked Marshall directly, "Is there any alternative?" Marshall's answer is careful. There are 3 options. Continue the naval blockade and aerial bombardment and wait for Japan to collapse. Attempt a negotiated peace, or invade. The blockade is already working. Japan's economy is strangling. Its cities are burning from B-29 raids. But it could take years. Years of bombing. Years of Japanese civilians dying by the hundreds of thousands while the military refuses to surrender. And there is no guarantee that the Japanese military would ever accept the terms America requires. Stimson says very little during the meeting. He listens. He watches Truman's face as the numbers accumulate. Later, in his diary, he will write that the June 18th meeting was the moment he understood with absolute clarity that the invasion could not be allowed to happen. Not because Americans were not willing to die for it, but because the cost was simply beyond anything that could be justified when alternatives existed. He writes in his careful, lawyerly hand, "We must find a way to end this without sending those boys onto those beaches." Those boys. 766,700 of them, already named in planning documents, already assigned to divisions, already training on beaches in the Pacific that look like the ones they are going to die on. The meeting ends at 5:15. The men shake hands and leave. The aides gather the classified documents and lock them away. The White House returns to its ordinary afternoon hum. Outside, Washington is a summer city. Restaurants are full. People are buying newspapers that carry headlines about the war in the Pacific, about B-29 raids on Japanese cities, about the slow, grinding progress toward victory. The war in Europe ended 6 weeks ago. People are beginning to talk about when this one will end. They are expecting it soon. They do not know about the 500,000 Purple Hearts sitting in a warehouse in Philadelphia. They do not know that the government has already ordered the medals that will be pinned to the chests of their fathers and brothers and sons when they come home from the beaches of Japan. The production facility that made them was running around the clock in early 1945. At one point, the director of the Mint sent a formal reprimand to the Philadelphia facility for falling behind schedule. The memo read, "Think of the 20,000 heroes at Iwo Jima, due to receive the Purple Hearts, which we are unable to supply. This is the government managing the logistics of mass death with the same administrative precision it uses to manage the logistics of everything else. 500,000 Purple Hearts. And now Stimson is in a car heading back to the War Department, watching Washington go past the window, thinking about a different kind of logistics, thinking about what it would actually take to end this war without sending those men onto those beaches. Thinking about a weapon that has been tested exactly 0 times, that exists right now as theory and blueprints, and a handful of scientists working in the desert of New Mexico. He is 77 years old. He has served 5 presidents, and he is about to write the most important memo of his life. But there is something Stimson does not know yet, something that no one in that room knows yet, something that changes every single number they discuss this afternoon. Somewhere in the Pacific, a small team of American intelligence analysts is staring at a set of photographs. Aerial reconnaissance images taken days earlier from an unarmed aircraft flying alone at 30,000 feet over the coast of Kyushu. The photographs show the beaches where American soldiers are supposed to land on November 1st. The beaches are not empty. What is on those beaches will make 268,000 casualties look like the optimistic estimate, and a single pilot, flying without weapons, without an escort, without any awareness of what he was about to find, took every picture. He had no idea what he had done. He never would. The cockpit of an F-13 smells like rubber tubing and cold metal, and the particular kind of fear that does not announce itself. It just sits in your chest the entire flight, quiet and patient. The pilot knows the aircraft has no guns. He knew this before he climbed in, before he strapped on his oxygen mask, before the twin Wright Cyclone engines dragged him down the runway at Guam and lifted him into the Pacific sky. The gun turrets that would be on a B-29 bomber have been stripped out and replaced with cameras. 5 of them. 3 K-18 mapping cameras in the belly with 36-inch lenses, pointing straight down. The aircraft weighs less without the turrets. It flies higher. That is the trade. He is going to fly alone over Japan at 30,000 feet. He is going to take photographs, and then he is going to fly home. That is the mission. That is all the mission is. The intelligence analysts at Guam will do the rest. They always do. The pilot delivers the film, writes his after-action report, goes to the mess hall, sleeps. He will never see the photographs he takes. He will never sit in the darkroom and watch them appear. He has no idea that this particular set of photographs on this particular morning is going to be different from every other set he has delivered. The F-13 cruises at 32,000 feet. A Japanese Kai-44 interceptor has a service ceiling of roughly 36,000 feet, in theory. In practice, at that altitude, the engines choke in the thin air, the controls go mushy, and a pilot trying to reach a target moving at 350 miles per hour has almost no margin for error. The photo reconnaissance crews know this. They have flown enough missions to trust the arithmetic. Almost. The pilot watches the coast of Kyushu appear below him through broken cloud cover. Brown and green and grey. The island's southern tip pushing into the sea. Down there, from 30,000 feet, it looks like nothing. Like topography. Like a map that has not been printed yet. The cameras click automatically, every 30 seconds. Strip after strip of coastline feeding through the K-18S, captured on film that will be pulled from the canisters at Guam and developed under red light in a dark room that smells of chemicals and cigarettes and the accumulated exhaustion of men who have been looking at Japanese military installations since 1944. The flight takes 35 minutes over the target area. Then the pilot turns south, pushes the throttles forward and begins the long journey back over open ocean. He does not know what he photographed. He will never know. The intelligence section at the 3rd Photo Reconnaissance Squadron on Guam processes hundreds of film canisters a week. The work is methodical and specific. Trained analysts with magnifying glasses and stereoscopes, squinting at images taken from 6 miles up, identifying the shapes of things that are trying not to be identified. Anti-aircraft batteries, airfields, harbour installations, troop concentrations. The analyst who picks up the Kyushu canisters from the summer of 1945 is doing exactly what he does every day. He feeds the film through the developer. He clips the negatives onto the light table. He picks up his magnifying glass. He looks at the first frame. Then he looks at it again. Then he sits very still. The beaches of southern Kyushu, the beaches that American soldiers are scheduled to land on in November, the beaches that appear in the operational planning documents with names and grid coordinates and assigned divisions, are not empty. They are covered. Fortifications running the entire length of the visible coastline, gun emplacements every few hundred yards, dug into the cliffs above the waterline where naval gunfire cannot reach them without direct line of sight. Tunnel openings, dozens of them, cut into the rock faces above the beaches. And soldiers, concentrations of troops that the analyst has to count and recount because the number keeps coming back larger than it should be. He puts down the magnifying glass. He picks up the telephone. In the spring of 1945, American planners believed there were roughly 246,000 Japanese troops on Kyushu. This was the foundation of every casualty estimate, every projection of losses, every calculation about how long the invasion would take. The number 246,000 is inside the mathematics that put 500,000 Purple Hearts into a warehouse in Philadelphia. Then the photographs arrive. Not all at once. That is what makes it worse. The number does not change in one terrible moment. It changes the way rising water changes a room, slowly and then all at once. And by the time you fully understand what is happening, there is nowhere left to go. June, 300,000 Japanese troops on Kyushu. The planners update their estimates. The casualty figures rise. No one panics. Wars have margins for error. July, 375,000. New divisions, identified through photographic evidence and signals intelligence, appearing in the precise southern section of the island where the landing beaches are marked. The analysts submit their revised reports. The planners update their figures again. The language in the memos begins to change in ways that are subtle and tell you everything. Phrases like estimated opposition quietly disappear. August, 600,000. 600,000 Japanese soldiers concentrated in southern Kyushu, waiting. And the analysts sitting on Guam with their magnifying glasses and their light tables now understand something that the generals in Washington are about to understand. The plan that was discussed in the White House on June 18th, the plan with the 268,000 American casualties that made the room go quiet, was built on numbers that were wrong by a factor of more than 2. Here is what 600,000 soldiers actually means. The entire Allied assault force at Normandy on D-Day was 156,000 men. Japan had 4 times that number waiting on one island. And behind those 600,000 soldiers, Japan had built something that no amount of naval bombardment could simply destroy. Tunnels, not foxholes or trenches, tunnels cut deep into the volcanic rock of the Kyushu cliffs, connected underground, capable of surviving direct hits from 16-inch naval guns and opening back up the moment the bombardment stopped. The Japanese had spent months on them. The Americans would not know how many there were until they tried to land. They still would not know when they were dying in front of them. Above the beaches, the Japanese had 9,000 aircraft assigned to Kyushu alone, not for air superiority, not for dogfighting, for one purpose: to fly directly into the American troop transports the moment they appeared on the horizon. Kamikaze attacks, launched in waves of hundreds at a time, aimed not at warships, but at the boats carrying soldiers toward the beach. At Okinawa, kamikazes had achieved a hit rate of roughly 1 in 9 attacks. Japanese planners, accounting for terrain that would degrade American radar coverage, projected they could improve that to 1 in 6 at Kyushu. Against hundreds of transports packed with soldiers, those numbers meant something specific and hideous. And then there were the civilians. An order had gone to every prefecture in southern Kyushu. All males aged 15 to 60. All females aged 17 to 40. 28 million people mobilized into something the Japanese government called the Volunteer Fighting Corps, though volunteering had nothing to do with it. They were handed whatever was available, rifles where rifles existed, hand grenades, swords, bamboo spears sharpened to a point. They were trained in night infiltration, in how to approach a sleeping soldier in the dark and use the sharpened bamboo before he could wake up. They were trained to die fighting because the slogan being repeated on every radio broadcast in Japan that summer said exactly that. The glorious death of the 100 million. 100 million people. The entire population of Japan. Fighting to the last person. On beaches and in fields and in every village and in every house until either Japan was free or Japan no longer existed. This is what the photographs showed. In Tokyo, Vice Admiral Takejiro Onishi reads the same intelligence reports and feels something entirely different from the analysts on Guam. Onishi is 53 years old and he created the kamikaze program. He stood in front of the first volunteer pilots in October 1944 and told them that their deaths were not sacrifice, they were salvation. He has spent every month since then watching young men climb into aircraft and not come back, and he has told himself and told their families and told anyone who would listen that it was worth it, that it was working, that Japan would hold. When he sees the numbers from Kyushu, 600,000 soldiers, 9,000 kamikaze aircraft, 28 million armed civilians, he is not afraid. He is satisfied. This is the math working. This is what Japan needs to be. An island so expensive, so bleeding, so catastrophically costly to invade that America will stop before it finishes the job, will negotiate, will accept terms, will let Japan keep its emperor and its structure and the idea that the war meant something. He believes this with the absolute conviction of a man who has already decided how his own story ends. He does not know about a desert in New Mexico called Trinity, where 3 weeks earlier, on July 16th, a device was detonated that produced a fireball visible from 160 miles away and left a crater of fused glass in the sand. He does not know what is sitting in a modified B-29 on an airfield in the Pacific, waiting. He does not know that every soldier he added to those beaches, every tunnel dug into every cliff, every sharpened bamboo pole pressed into the hands of a 50-year-old farmer, was not building a shield. He was building the argument that made the atomic bomb inevitable. The stronger Japan's defense of Kyushu became, the more certain it was that Kyushu would never be invaded. Onishi would understand this eventually, but not yet. The film canisters from the F-13's final Kyushu run are logged, developed, analysed and forwarded to Washington. The intelligence reports that come back through the chain of command land, eventually, on the desk of Henry Stimson, who reads them in his office and then sits very still for a long time, the way he sat very still in June when he read the first casualty estimates. The pilot who took the photographs has already filed his report. He described his route, his altitude, the weather conditions over the target, the absence of any interceptor contact. Standard debrief. He ate in the mess hall, talked to the other pilots, went to sleep. He did not know that his film canisters were about to close the last door. He did not know that Stimson had already written in his diary months earlier, "We must find a way to end this without sending those boys onto those beaches." He did not know that the photographs he delivered were exactly the evidence that made that sentence into a decision. And the decision was already made. The world just did not know it yet. August 6th, 1945, 8:15 in the morning. In the city of Hiroshima, a 13-year-old girl named Yoshi Oka is walking to school. She is late. She is thinking about this, about what her teacher will say, about whether she can find a seat near the window, when the sky turns white. Not bright. White. The kind of white that is not a colour, but an absence of everything else. No sound, no heat yet. Just white for a fraction of a second, and then the world comes apart. The fireball reaches a temperature of several million degrees. The blast wave travels outward at the speed of sound and flattens everything within a mile in every direction in approximately 4 seconds. Yoshia is 800 meters from the hypocenter. She survives. Most of the people around her do not. By the end of the day, between 70,000 and 80,000 people are dead. By the end of the year, the number will reach 140,000. This is not the story of Hiroshima. This is the story of what happened in a room in Tokyo 2 hours later, when the first reports arrived. The Japanese Military Council receives the initial message at roughly 10 in the morning. The message is fragmentary and confused, the way messages from catastrophic events always are. Hiroshima has been attacked. The nature of the attack is unclear. There has been a very large explosion. General Korichika Anami, the war minister, assumes it is a conventional bombing raid, a large one, possibly an entire formation of B-29s concentrated on a single target. This has happened before. Tokyo itself was firebombed in March, 80,000 dead in a single night from conventional incendiary bombs. War is like this. Cities burn. Then the reconnaissance aircraft comes back. The pilot who flew over Hiroshima after the attack lands at his base and gives his debrief, and the men listening to him go very quiet. He says, "Hiroshima is not there anymore." He says there is a column of smoke reaching 60,000 feet. He says, "We flew through the edge of it, and the aircraft was thrown sideways by turbulence from 200 miles away." He says, "The city is gone. One bomb, one aircraft, one city, gone." The council sits with this for a moment. Then someone says what everyone is thinking. It must have been a conventional attack, a large magazine detonation, a storage facility for explosives. Because the alternative, a single weapon that can erase a city, is not possible. It contradicts everything they know about physics, about war, about what the Americans are capable of. 16 hours later, President Truman makes a radio broadcast. He uses the words atomic bomb and explains in plain language what it is and what it does. He says there are more of them. He says that if Japan does not surrender, it can expect a rain of ruin from the air, the like of which has never been seen on this earth. General Anami reads the transcript. He still wants to fight. He argues in an emergency session of the Supreme War Council that runs through the night that the atomic bombs are terrible but survivable, that Japan should continue, that the invasion of Kyushu can still be bled into an American political defeat. He has 600,000 soldiers on those beaches. He has 9,000 aircraft waiting. He still believes the plan can work. He believes this right up until August 9th, when two things happen on the same day. At 11:02 in the morning of August 9th, a second atomic bomb detonates over Nagasaki. 40,000 people dead in the first seconds, 80,000 by the end of the year. And at midnight of the same day, the Soviet Union declares war on Japan and sends 1.5 million soldiers pouring across the border into Manchuria. This is the moment that breaks the plan, not the atomic bombs alone, as incomprehensible as they are. The Soviet entry. Japan's entire strategic calculation for the endgame of the war rested on one assumption, that the Soviet Union would remain neutral. Japan had a non-aggression pact with Moscow. Japanese diplomats had spent months quietly reaching out to Soviet officials, hoping to use Moscow as an intermediary to negotiate a peace with the Americans that would preserve the emperor and the military structure. The plan to bleed the Americans on the beaches of Kyushu was supposed to buy time for those negotiations. The Soviets cross the border and the plan collapses in a single night. There is no mediator. There is no negotiated peace. Could have held American forces on a beach, could have held American forces on a beach for months, is being bypassed and encircled in 72 hours by a force that simply drives around it. General Anami sits in his office on the morning of August 10th and looks at two pieces of paper. One is the casualty report from Nagasaki. One is the Soviet advance report from Manchuria. He has been awake for 36 hours. He still does not want to surrender. But he is a soldier, and soldiers understand arithmetic, and the arithmetic has finally run out. The Supreme War Council is deadlocked. 3 members for surrender, 3 against. The tie goes to the emperor. Hirohito speaks for less than a minute. He says, "We must endure the unendurable." August 15th, 1945, noon. For the first time in the history of Japan, the emperor speaks on the radio, not to give orders, not to announce a victory, to tell 72 million people that the war is over, that Japan has surrendered, that they should lay down their weapons and accept what is coming. Most Japanese people have never heard his voice. The emperor is not a person in the cultural understanding of 1945 Japan. He is closer to a divine presence, a living God whose image cannot be photographed without ceremony and whose voice has never been broadcast to ordinary citizens. Women in rural villages, hearing the radio announcement that the emperor himself will speak, press their faces to the floor before the radio set. They do not look up. You do not look at a god. The broadcast lasts 4 minutes and 30 seconds. It is recorded the night before in the Imperial Palace, and army officers attempt to steal and destroy the recording during the night. Soldiers who cannot accept surrender, who break into the palace to find the disc, who search for hours and do not find it because a palace official has hidden it in a basket of women's clothing in a back room. The disc survives. The broadcast goes out at noon. Hirohito does not use the word surrender. He says that the war situation has developed not necessarily to Japan's advantage, a sentence so understated describing the incineration of 2 cities and the death of 3 million Japanese soldiers that it has been analysed by historians ever since. He says Japan is accepting the Allied proclamation. He says the enemy has used a new and most cruel bomb. He says endure the unendurable. On military bases across Japan, soldiers hear the broadcast and do not move for a long time. Some weep. Some sit in silence that lasts for hours. On Kyushu, on those beaches where 600,000 men have spent months digging tunnels and sighting artillery and sharpening bamboo, officers gather their units and read the emperor's words aloud, because many of the men have not heard a radio. Some of the soldiers ask to be allowed to charge the nearest American position rather than surrender. Their officers tell them no. The beaches stay empty. The 500,000 Purple Hearts stay in their warehouse. Takejiro Onishi hears the broadcast alone. He is in his official residence in Tokyo. He has resigned his position the day before, the moment it became clear that the surrender was coming. He sits in a chair by the radio and listens to the emperor's voice, and then he sits in the silence after the broadcast ends. He is 53 years old. He has sent more than 4,000 young men to their deaths in kamikaze aircraft. He told them their deaths would save Japan. He told them it would work. He believed it when he said it, and he kept believing it through every month of 1945, while the number of pilots who did not come back kept growing. And he kept believing it right up until this morning, when the voice of a living God came out of a radio set and said, "It is over." Onishi picks up a brush and writes a final message to the pilots he sent to die. He apologizes. He tells them their spirit will live. He writes a short poem. Then he performs seppuku, ritual suicide, with a short sword. He does it without a kaishakunin. A kaishakunin is the attendant who delivers the final, merciful beheading stroke to end the pain. Onishi refuses one. He has decided that he does not deserve mercy. He does not deserve a quick death. He will accept what comes. He lives for 15 hours. Military doctors find him before dawn and offer to help him die faster. He refuses them too. He lies on the floor of his residence and waits. And at 6 in the morning on August 16th, he is finally gone. He was wrong about the plan. He was wrong about the beaches. He was wrong about what 600,000 soldiers and 9,000 aircraft could do against a weapon he never imagined existed. But he was the only senior Japanese military officer who punished himself for being wrong. Most of the others went home, wrote memoirs, and lived out their lives. Onishi spent 15 hours on the floor refusing to be forgiven. Somewhere on Guam, the pilot who flew his F-13 over the coast of Kyushu and photographed beaches full of soldiers is reading about the surrender in the Pacific Stars and Stripes. There are photographs of the mushroom clouds. There are photographs of Japanese officials boarding the USS Missouri in Tokyo Bay to sign the surrender documents. There is nothing about reconnaissance missions, nothing about film canisters, nothing about intelligence reports that change casualty projections. He files a routine demobilization request. He is sent home. He gets on with his life. The chain of decisions that began with his photographs, the intelligence analysts on Guam, the revised casualty estimates, the memos to Stimson, the arguments in the White House, the final calculation that the invasion could not happen. That chain is classified. It will stay classified for decades. When the documents are eventually released, the story is told in bureaucratic language, in footnotes and appendices, in the kind of dense historical writing that very few people ever read. His name does not appear in any of it. He did not know what he had done. He lived his whole life not knowing. The 500,000 Purple Hearts manufactured in 1945 for the invasion of Japan were still being issued to wounded American soldiers in Iraq and Afghanistan 60 years later. The stockpile was finally nearly exhausted sometime in the early 2000s, spent not on the beaches of Kyushu, but on the streets of Fallujah and the mountains of Kandahar, in wars the men who ordered those medals could not have imagined. Each one of those medals was intended for a specific beach, a specific date, a specific version of history that did not happen. Each one of them is a Purple Heart that was ordered for a soldier who came home, because a pilot flew over an island without weapons and took photographs, because an analyst in a dark room looked at them and picked up a telephone, because a man named Stimson wrote 6 words in his diary, "We must find another way," and because a 53-year-old admiral built the most formidable coastal defense in human history, and in doing so, made certain it would never be used. Nobody won this story. But 766,700 American soldiers never had to land on those beaches. And the pilot who made that possible went home to Ohio and spent the rest of his life as a photographer. He never knew. He never would.